Hi, I'm ED-SKaR, and I hope that you don't mind me working in the background here because I am on the clock. I have just been given a commission of some 3D printed components, and it's actually something that I've looked at fairly recently. This is Mr Blackmaws Premier and Unique STLs. Now, to be clear to everyone at home, I did not back the Kickstarter. I have not bought the files. I have only access to them because I'm a 3D print technician and I'm printing them on behalf of someone else. Now, what that means is when I get to the end of this commission, I will have to delete all of these files. I do not get to keep them because I have not paid for them. I also don't get to print anything for myself, which is a shame. I didn't pay for them, I don't get them, that's the reason. I am just getting started with some easy stuff and I'm going to print as many legs as I can. I'm going through all of the files to pick out all of the different designs of legs. And so let's have a look at what I'm doing. Yeah, Mr Blackmaws has put pre-supported and unsupported versions of all of the files on. I'm just going to get as many as I can printed quickly, and then any that fail I can support them myself, and I know how to support for my machine. Now I am going to, for my consigner, come up with some interesting, and I'm not saying it's that interesting, it's just a little bit interesting, options for them, and I'm going to copy off some of the legs and mirror them, because in the set, like the entire Kickstarter from Mr Blackmaws, it seems like there are about 20 sets of legs. No, it's 5 in the infantry squad, 5 in the command squad, and 3 in the heavy weapons squad. So it's 13. There we go. There are 13 sets of legs. And so to make things at least a little bit interesting, just do a quick X or Y mirror. It reverses the pose. Like I said, not that interesting, but someone's putting their left leg forward, well, someone else will have their right leg forward. And there we go. You can also see that I am shuffling them together pretty darn tightly, actually. I am overlapping some of the supports. So, for example, here, I could put that support for this leg and the supports for this previous set of legs. I can overlap them because they're the supports and I don't care about that. Same here, this is overlapping. So long as I don't have a situation where, like this, where supports of one model are clipping into the actual model of another model, because that would ruin that part. I'm not necessarily fighting for absolute perfection in terms of getting every single every single possible tiny scrap of space filled with legs, but as we will mention again later on, I want to get as many components into each print so that I can reduce the number of prints. I am charging my consigner based on a rate per print, given that pretty much everything is fairly shallow in terms of how tall the parts are. Each of the prints is going to take roughly about the same time. There's a few parts that are bigger, but that's not too much of an issue. And if I can get all of the legs in one print, that would be ideal. Alright, so now that I have, what is that, 33, nice. That's a lot of legs. So I'm going to send this to the printer, and then I should probably sit down and actually explain what this video is about. I've wanted to make a video on this sort of subject for quite a while, as I've noticed a lot of people don't really understand how much effort actually goes into running a 3D printer. Some people think it's absolutely the messiest thing ever and takes forever to do anything, and other people think it's so trivial. You just push a button and get a thing. I'm not paying someone to do that for me. I hope to show here the steps that go into it, how to go through the process, and how to come up with a reasonable idea of how much time it actually takes, and therefore what a reasonable price would be if you are paying for a commission, or if you're a tech yourself and working out how much to charge for one. The next thing I need to do is send all of those legs that I've sliced off to the printer, and come back 3 hours later to pop them off. And that brings up the first part of the costs of a 3D print. The resin, the electricity and maintenance costs that the machine itself uses. In the case of these legs, the estimated resin cost that Chitterbox has is about £1.50, but that's for the whole print of more than 30 legs. So about 5p each. That's the actual cost of resin per component. It's really not that much. For the electricity, I could get one of those electricity plug adapter meter things, but all told, this type of printer doesn't use that much. It's going to be more than a computer monitor or a TV, but less than an oven. It's not enough to keep track of, and it's only running for a few hours per print anyway. Now, maintenance costs are a little more interesting, because that then relies on how long you intend to run the printer for, and if you're just doing a couple of prints for your friends, or whether you're actually running a business for it. I haven't run any real numbers, but I'll give you an example of how I would approach thinking about this. If a 3D printer costs, for example, £300, and you get 300 prints out of it before it fails, then that cost £1 per print. If you buy a screen, some FEP sheets and so on for another maybe £100 and get another 300 prints, that's £400 for 600 prints, or 67p per print, and so on and so forth. All of this is not totaling all that much. A couple of quid per full print bed is going to cover all of these costs. The real cost is, and almost always is with commissions, the time of the person doing it. The 3D print technician, and in this case that is me. So how much time does it take to do this whole commission? And that's going to take a whole lot of estimating and guessing, but let's give it a go. And we of course have to start off with talking to my consigner, and that takes some time, because I have to make sure I know exactly what they want, what parts, how many modification, do they want mirrors and scaling and so on, to make sure that they're happy with what they get. Depending on the consigner and how much they understand about the process, that might just be as simple as, I want these bits, like this please, here's the price, okay, let's go. And it doesn't take that long at all, but in some cases where the consigner doesn't necessarily understand the process or how 3D printing works, that discussion can be the lion's share of the work. Then there's the time of slicing the files, which is what I showed at the beginning of my video. In this example I wasn't having to deal with supports, and that saves a lot of time, so again that's going to affect how long it takes. The print itself takes me personally very little time at all. I just plug in a USB stick and set it off and go on about my day. I have to pull the finished print off of the printer. This takes some time as I have to check the FEP sheet and print bed to make sure there's no partly cured resin stuck there, because that can break the screen if you start printing with a lump of resin in the way. Ask me how I know that. And I want to also check for any failed prints at this point, because if I know as early as possible, I can get some reprinted pieces going fairly quickly. If all goes well, that's only really a couple of minutes work. I'm then dropping the entire print with all of the supports attached still, and actually the supports connecting all of the parts together, making it handily in one big sheet, into an IPA bath. I have a dirty IPA bath first to knock off most of the uncured resin, and then a clean-ish IPA bath to get rid of the rest. But the next step takes a lot longer. I'm using hot water to help separate the supports from each part, and you can see that I've got a few prints to do all at once, and that makes things a little more efficient. I need to take off the supports from each part without breaking any part of any of the models, and that includes weapon barrels, scabbard tips, folds, cloaks, toes, hair, any small piece that will be supported but needs to be kept.
I'm sure some people are wondering why I'm using these IPA baths rather than a wash and cure station, and there's a very good reason for that. It actually takes longer to use a wash and cure station than it does to use the old-fashioned method, and everyone who's thinking about it goes, no it doesn't. It takes 10 or 20 minutes to use a wash and cure station, whereas it takes hours to use my method. But I'm not talking about the amount of total time, I'm talking about the amount of time that I'm putting in. And when I move some models, like that sheet of supports that are all stuck together from one pot to another pot, that takes me 10 seconds. And then I move it to the next pot, and that takes 10 seconds. And then I put it in the bucket ready to be de-supported. And so that's taken me 20 seconds to do. Running the washing station takes longer than that. And in the same kind of way, running it as a curing station also takes longer, because you've got to sort all the things out, lift the lid and all of that. It takes a few minutes to do. Whereas what I can do is I can dump a bunch of these things on a tray and use the most abundant source of UV light that we have available. It's called the sun.
So we have our parts printed, cleaned and cured, ready to go off to our consigner, right? Well, no, because if someone is paying you to do a job, you better check your work to make sure you did a good job. For me, the quality control was a little bit of an issue, as I had several failed prints or partial failures, and this has nothing to do with the consigner or the models. This is simply the FEP sheet of my printer wearing out, so I had to replace it, and once that was done I continued printing, starting with replacing any part that had failed first time for this commission. I went through every component the consigner was expecting, ensuring that each one was printed to a good quality. Now, it is quite possible that I missed something here or there, but I did spend a long time, well over 2 hours, checking the entire commission. If everything had been perfect first time, it should just have been 10 prints, but with the reprints due to the FEP sheet, it ended up being 13. Not the consigner's fault, so I will not be charging them. I'll just charge for the original 10, however that does mean that I have lost the time, both checking and reprinting those components. But so I am finally done with all the printing, all of the cleaning, the sorting, and then the reprinting, and all of that kind of malarkey. I have, in this case, for this particular Kickstarter, there were 19 character models. I've got all of those bagged up here, ready to go. And just to make it a nice round 100 models in total, I have 81 of the multi-part options from the set. So I've got 81 heads, kind of just random selection of them, 81 sets of legs, random selection of those, and then we've got 81 torsos of the different types. We've got a bunch of last gunners, we've got the special weapons, the heavy weapons, and the kind of the elbow multi-part ones as well. So I've got a few of those with enough arms for all of them. Working out how the tripod was actually supposed to work was a bit of a challenge for this, but it does make sense. Working out how the mortar went on the tripod was the weirdest one. I'm not entirely sure I like how the mortar goes together. But I also have a little bag of all the extra pieces, and these are mostly ammo, a couple of grenades, there's some straight silver spare straight silvers in there, and the spade and the pickaxe. But also, just on the curing station, the windowsill at the moment, are some of my own design, the Vergast Axe-Rake. Consigner doesn't know that they're coming, so when they open the box, hopefully they'll enjoy that as a little extra surprise. Click the link in the description or on screen, wherever it is, however that works. I'll post a link to the Vergast Axe-Rake video that I did quite a while ago now, because I think it's more interesting than just being a pickaxe. It's more characterful. Going back to kind of the set itself from Mr Blackmaws, these are so nice. Not just in terms of the quality of the sculpting, but also in terms of the character. So obviously things like Frostin having the cigar in his mouth, Sorik with his little message capsule and stuff like that. But you keep looking and you keep noticing there's just little details here and there, other things that are just, it's not just like, oh yeah, you've looked at the Wikipedia entry for this particular character. No, you actually know a little bit about the character as well. So these dynamic poses of the characters are really nice. The multi-part kits are really cool, and the way they go together is makes a lot of sense. And at this point I've put in a vast amount of hours on this, and so we should probably wrap these up and get them sent off, because that's the last thing to do. They're all ready to go, so I'm going to bag them up
and post them out.
So in this case, I think I've come to a total of roughly 1 hour per print, and that's 10 hours for the 10 prints of this commission. And as there were 100 models in this commission, that's a nice easy number for me to calculate. As I know the consigner and member of the Tanith community, I'll be charging national minimum wage, which in the UK is currently just shy of £12 an hour, plus postage, which would be like £4 or something. Realistically, I should be, as an amateur print technician, charging closer to £15 an hour, but if I was a professional and I was actually trying to run a business, I'd have more expensive printers for the better quality. I'd also have a more efficient process, and so I'd easily be charging £20 to £25 an hour for my own time. But then I would be faster, and so I'd be charging a few less hours for my consigner. Given that our technical cost that I mentioned earlier is £1 per print, and that's divided over 15 infantry models that I get off of each print, or fewer for larger models, but let's keep talking about infantry because that's easier. What that means for me is a commission on a print of an army like this probably shouldn't be less than £1 per model. But it does depend on the quality of the equipment and the skill of the technician. It might be a little more than that. And naturally, for smaller runs like a single model, you probably have to pay for a full hour, even if you don't think a single model takes that long, because it actually does take that long. Looking after a single model takes time, and you have to go through all of the same steps. But a full print bed is going to be more efficient. Probably it's kind of swings and roundabouts, really.
But hold on one moment, because there is one last thing that we do need to talk about. Once you've sent off your 3D prints, or in my case, I've sent off the prints that I've done to my consigner, you need to make sure that the consigner's actually happy. Because when they open the box, they're going to check through it, they're going to make sure all the parts are there, they're going to make sure that they're not broken, which you should have done before you sent them out, and I've shown that that's exactly what I've done. But this is the point where any confusion starts to rear its head, where maybe you weren't clear in your discussions at the beginning and you didn't get the right idea of what your consigner wanted. Now in my case, with my consigner, I have worked out exactly what they wanted, and so they're pretty happy with it. But I did ask them to do a little bit of an unboxing to kind of show their perspective, almost giving a review of my 3D printing, but also giving a review of Mr Blackmaws' sculpting as well, because that's relevant as well. So they have sent me some videos that we shall now have a look through. So I'll pass the video over to Fuzzy, my consigner, for this video.
Well, hello there. It's the big day.
Hello. Yes.
I've now received the prints that Ed has so kindly done for me, and as requested, I have to do a little unboxing for it. So we'll get rid of the anti-docs system here, and let's see what Ed sent me within here.
Yep.
So
I remember that box. That's a resin bottle box.
looks like. Oh, I see. You can always count on Ed to send you one of his favourite faction in a box for it. Yeah.
You rotten what?
We all know you love them, and thank you for that.
No, I don't love them.
Let's see what's
Bloody
beneath here as
beakies.
well. So this is the first time I've had printed models of this sort come in. There have been some others in the past, but these are the first that I've had essentially custom made for me out of a printer directly, and already I'm seeing that these are filled with some pretty crazy detail. Actually, I wasn't sure what to expect from this.
Loads of detail on this.
Particularly given the scale as well. Varl here, or whatever they're calling him for, he is a chunky lad. If I, for example, bring over one of my Perry miniature, Tanith here.
Hey, good old callback.
We can see.
Yeah, it's going to be way bigger.
He is a pretty big lad. Now,
old 28
now
versus a new
probably fine,
35.
because remember, these are on the older Citadel scale. They are very likely closer to the modern 32mm human scale. Which
32, 35, yeah.
Unfortunately, don't have one around to compare to at the moment. I've yet to build them, but we all know he's a big guy anyway. A lot of them are described as tall, so that's perfectly fine.
Yeah,
so we have Domor here as well. Looks like Soric in here.
Yeah.
Goodness me, these are wonderful quality. I never noticed the pickaxe before.
That's fine.
These are going to be very interesting to paint with the material on them, see how it goes. It looks like this is McVenner coming in. This is, I'm liking
with the
type
tree.
of resin that's been used here. It's quite rigid. It doesn't feel as brittle as other resins. And you can even see the detail on the bayonet has remained nicely intact. Here we have the character everyone, of course, loves, Elijah Koo.
Sure.
And yeah, it looks like the rest of the characters have all come across in absolutely fine condition in order to get started with them.
Just as an aside, I do mix standard resin with some like 25% of an ABS-like resin. The standard resin is cheap, and the ABS resin gives it a little bit of flex, so it has that durability. Haven't mentioned that before, but that's just how I do things.
Okay, so I've had a little chance to look through more of these and check their scale.
Delving into the bottom
I
of the
did
box.
actually lie. I do actually have a modern height guy with these
Hey.
Arbites here.
Oh,
And if you
Arbites,
see
yeah.
them against them, they are actually about the same height to slightly larger. Some of the models
Close
are a
enough.
bit more on par with it, or are notably taller. Granted, Colia would be taller, so
Oh, yeah,
there
he
does seem to be the files by default are very large by comparison. Some of them are almost the size of a Primaris
did-
Space Marine. However,
We did discuss
it's worth
lowering
remembering
the
that
scale, but
these
we
are all
didn't need to.
characters, and I think having a nice little chunky size is going to help them stand out very nicely. It is exceptionally minor, if anything, so I'm more than delighted with how much extra space it will give me for the detail. We do also have the wonderful Saint model that will require building.
Such a
We
beautiful
have
sculpt,
the
that one.
individual squads that Ed has so kindly marked as to which is which. I believe this is a heavy weapon squad.
Yep,
And I was told there'd be something at the bottom to keep an eye on, and I saw something. I think it might be this. And yep, there we go. It is the ED-SKaR branded Axe-Rakes, and plenty of them to have
You're
lurking
welcome.
around heavy weapon bases or hit bash into a hand, because you really do need an odd Axe-Rake if you have some Vergast in there. So, yeah. This is looking incredible. I can't wait to get building some of these. It is more Tanith than I ever thought I would get in one box. The quality of these first and unique models looks wonderful. Oh my goodness, that is a lot of heads. That is a lot of heads. Goodness gracious me. And a lot of legs to benefit this. It's kind of slightly uncanny valley seeing them all like that. The first and unique models are looking wonderfully detailed. Print quality from Ed is looking fantastic as well. They feel
you.
tough. They feel very nicely cured, and I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with these. So, thanks, Ed.
Let's get straight ahead to the last video that he sent me.
So, fast forward a week, and immediately we have our first painted ones here. First impressions, they're wonderful to paint. Lots of strong lines, clear detail. You can see it on the last gun with the twirls. Particularly the camel cloaks. They've got very strong lines
really
for your
nice.
highlighting and to guide your brush around. Excellent designs.
Love that.
I do have to give credit to Juan Hidalgo. It's his colour scheme for the cloaks that I used.
Cool.
I might get a bit of mud on there later on. I've even used it on other Tanith models like this one here, which you can see it just works wonderfully. Okay, sorry, that wasn't a Tanith model.
Beakies.
My mistake. This is actually just the commission I'm sending back to ED-SKaR, the commander for his 4th Space Marine Army. I swear, you can't keep that guy away from the Beakies. He just absolutely loves them. What I was meaning to pick up was this one here, the character, Shoggy Domore. These are single-piece sculpts, which can make them a little bit footery to get into all that detail. You can see how it layers over if you're painting around it, but the detail on them is incredible with the little
That's come out really
counter
nicely.
for his sweeping kit, his PDA, all the detail on the sweeper, and even the extra little blast pads across his armor there. So the characters have a ton of stuff to work with, and I'm really looking forward to getting to the rest of them.
That's come out beautiful.
So I've got a big thank you to give out to ED-SKaR for putting these together for me and for giving
You're
me the
welcome.
chance to get a couple of these painted up, and for now and in future. And I look forward to maybe getting them posted up online somewhere else, let people have another look at them. So thank you, Ed.
Lovely.
I'll see you about.
More than welcome. Although, if you keep talking about beakies, we may have a falling out. Nah, it's all in good fun. All in good fun. So, there it is. That's a long discussion of the full process of running a 3D print. from the start point of talking to your consigner about what they want, kind of if there is any modifications, scaling, mirroring, supporting we didn't really look at because all of these files were pre-supported and the pre-supports worked really well. The printing, the cleaning, the curing, organizing and checking, and then getting them sent out and making sure that your consigner, Fuzzy in this case, is happy with them, which they are. I've given an idea of how much time that takes, and we've looked at the kind of the upfront costs of resin and then the electricity and all that isn't that significant. It really is you're paying a person to run the machine for you, and so with any kind of commission like this, you're paying for the person's time, and how much they charge for their time is really up to them. I'm charging fairly low prices because I'm just doing this as a hobby. I'm not kind of doing this professionally. This is just a little bit extra to keep the machines running when I'm not printing anything for myself. But someone who is running a small business or kind of a actual professional business doing 3D print on demand would be charging a lot more. So that is something you keep in mind. And so I want people to take away from this that, firstly, it's not that difficult. There is just a process that you follow to get things done. It's not like alchemy and wizardry and all of this kind of stuff and magic to get 3D printing to work. But on the other hand, I also want people to come away from this not saying, oh, it's just pushing a button and easy, I'm not paying for that kind of thing. But hopefully you've got a reasonable idea of what this actually means, kind of how much effort and time goes into 3D printing, and so if you're considering either doing 3D print commissions or getting a 3D print commission, kind of paying someone to print stuff for you, how much time they're putting into printing for you, and kind of what's that worth in terms of how much they want to charge you, whether it's a financial kind of this much per print or this much per piece, or whether they want swaps, because there's a lot of kind of small gaming groups that have one person with a 3D printer and they'll just say, oh yeah, swap me this, that and the other and I'll print you some stuff, or kind of buy me some drinks at the next event and I'll print you a couple of models. That kind of thing is fairly common as well. And so I don't want to give a distinct this is the answer because it doesn't work that way. But hopefully you understand at least a little better now than you did before. My consigner Fuzzy is very happy with their stuff, the Tanith First and Only from Mr Blackmaws. And I may as well put a link in the description to my previous video where I discussed the Kickstarter, because that's very relevant to our 3D printing today. And I believe that some of the files from this are now on Mr Blackmaws' own website for individual purchase, not at the Kickstarter price, but I haven't actually looked into that too heavily. But I think that's really all I need to discuss. And so, I'm ED-SKaR, always will be, and thank you very much for watching, and thank you for Fuzzy for letting me have a look at the files by way of making me do this commission. That's been really cool to have a chance to look at, and now I'm going to go and delete them all because I'm not allowed to keep them. Bye, thanks for watching.